Everybody has to read this book. They should read this book first, and then they should read The Myth of Race by Robert Wald Sussman. And once you've read The Myth of Race, you will never, ever again go along with the idea that there are 3 or 4 or 5 different races. It was a lie made up by the people who ran the Spanish Inquisition. And before that, there were different colors, but race had nothing to do. There was only one race, the human race. We made that whole thing up. It's time to get rid of it. We have the power to do that.
Family, I am so excited for today's video. I am so happy for doing this video. I am doing this video at 2 a.m. in the morning, and I am super excited for this one because the lady in topic today is just one of those people that I look up to. She speaks about racism and she speaks about matters equality. And now, just in case you did not know, Jane Elliott is an American school teacher, and she's renowned for the blue eyes, brown eyes experiment conducted initially in her 3rd grade class in Lower on April 5th, 1968, the day after Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated. The experiment was aimed to teach her students about racism and discrimination by dividing the class into 2 groups based on their eye color, blue-eyed and brown-eyed students. Elliot treated the groups differently, giving privileges to one group while discriminating the other group. For example, the favored group received extra recess, time, and praise, while the discriminated group wore collars to mark them and faced derogatory remarks and restrictions. The roles were reversed the next day. The experiment revealed the experiment revealed the ease which prejudice could be created and demonstrated the impact of discrimination on both the persecuted and the privileged. The exercise gained widespread attention and has been used in diversity training programs. Elliott's work has been documented in various books and films, most notably in the documentary A Class Divided. Her methods, while the controversial, have sparked important conversations about race and social constructs of discrimination. So, as you all have heard, Jane Elliott used the blue-eyed experiment just to ensure that somebody could feel what it is to be discriminated. You know, today you're given a privilege, then tomorrow it's taken away from you. Then now you get to hear the implications, you get to feel them. And that experiment really worked. So let us watch this video of Jane Elliott just giving her peace of mind about matters racism. Then we'll stop this video at any given point in time just to give it commentaries. Let's watch this now.
For people who don't know you, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm a 3rd grade teacher in a country school in Riceville, Iowa, and I am here at the NAACP speaking because the day after Martin Luther King Jr. was killed by a society that hated him because he was going to change the economic situation in this country, I did an exercise in discrimination with my 3rd grade classroom to let my little 3rd graders, all white, all Christian children, find out how it feels to be something other than white in the United States of America. I split them according to the color of their eyes and treated those who had their own color eyes for the day the way we have traditionally treated blacks, Native Americans, Asians, all those Jews, all those who are different in appearance or in religion. And we learned more that day than I wanted to know.
What did that study show you?
Oh, it showed me a lot of things. Number one, it showed me that racism is a learned response. Nobody's born a bigot. You have to teach bigotry, and that's what we do in this country. I found out how it feels to be on the receiving end of racism because I'm blue-eyed, and the brown-eyed children were on the top in that first day. And I found out how it feels to be treated badly by people over whom you have power because of having the wrong color eyes. I found out how it feels to be subjected to unbelievable and unreal discrimination because of a physical characteristic over which I had no control. I thought I knew about racism. I thought I knew about child psychology. I knew nothing. All I knew was what I had learned in school. And what I had learned in school was not education. What I got in school wasn't education. It was indoctrination. I was taught how to be a good American citizen. And in this country, we think that the only Americans are the ones who live in the contiguous 48 states of the United States. Americans are everybody from the very north tip of Canada to the very southern tip of South America. But we, in our arrogance, say that we are the only Americans. If you're really going to keep this America to Americans, we don't dare build a wall on the southern border of the United States, because those people, those brown-skinned people that are going to come across that border are Americans. Now, we'd better choose our language or choose our behaviors. Let me tell you something. It wasn't a study, and it wasn't an experiment. I don't experiment with children without their knowledge or their permission. It was experiential education. It was giving a child an experience for the purpose of changing their brain. And that's exactly what it does every time I do it.
Now, you conducted the same study, I'm sorry, not study, exercise with adults.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And is it any different between the children and the adults?
Adults get more violent. I've been hit several times by white males, angry white males. I've had a knife pulled on me. They ran me out of Uniontown, Pennsylvania at midnight one night. 3 carloads of blacks did, to get me out of town, because the teachers that I put through the exercise in a very limited way were so angry that they called the superintendent in the afternoon and said, if you don't get that bitch out of town, we're going to kill her. So they got me out of town. First time I've been scared. And the last time I've been scared. Because I found out that day that they could kill me, but they couldn't kill the idea. Victor Hugo said, no force on earth can stop an idea whose time has come. The idea of one race, the human race, is an idea whose time has come. We are not going to be able to stop it no matter what they do. They can elect Trump after Trump after Trump, and that will not stop the idea that there's only one race on the face of the earth. It's the human race, and we are all members of it. You and I are cousins. Now, if you don't like being my cousin, that's too bad for you. But we are all in the same family. We are members of the family of man.
You say that all whites are racist. Can you expound on that, please?
Any white person who was born, raised, and schooled in the United States of America, if you aren't a racist, you're a miracle. Either that or you decided to educate yourself. Because education in this country is about white is right, brown's all right, black's got to stand back. Yellow's mellow, but whites, we educate in a way that says that white males have done all the adventures, have made all the adventures, have done all the discovering, have made everything that is good and has been accomplished according to social studies, which is actually anti-social studies, by white males. It's a lie. But we do that in order to maintain the myth of white superiority. The myth of race has to be maintained at all costs in this country. Because if white people have to give up the color of their skin as being something that makes them perfect, what do they have left? If we start teaching the truth about history, if we start teaching about Nile Valley contributions to civilization, it will totally change the way we conduct ourselves in the classroom. It will have to. Columbus didn't discover America. You can't discover a place where people are already living. But we celebrate that every October. It's a lie. We need to get over. We need to stop telling the myths and start telling the truth.
So when you tell people that they're racist, and it must have some kind of effect, because most people will say, I'm not racist.
I'm not a racist. Why, some of my best friends are black.
Right.
Yeah, and then you say, name one. Or this one, I don't see color. And when some woman says to me, I don't see color, I say, I knew that. If you saw color, you wouldn't dye your hair that way. Or I say, if you saw color, you wouldn't wear that shirt with those pants. I believe that you don't see color. It's an attempt to deny skin color. And it's an attempt to deny what's wrong with seeing the color of my skin. Is it all right for you to see me kind of pink? That's okay for me. I don't mind. And I suspect that you don't mind being seen the color you are. You have a right to be what you are. And until people in this country and people in this world get it into their heads that the first modern human beings that evolved on this earth were black women. They evolved in sub-Saharan Africa about 280,000 years ago, and every human being on the face of the earth today has the memory of those black women's genetic structure in their genes. Now, we don't want to admit that, but that's the way it is. And as people moved farther and farther from the equator, their bodies produced less and less melanin, so their hair, their skin, and their eyes got lighter. As they moved into the east, they ate a lot of fish and a lot of vegetables, so their skin took on a different tone. I found that out when I was raising little kids. My husband worked in a supermarket. He was the head of the produce department, and they had lots of oranges that they couldn't sell, so he'd bring them home, and I was feeding my kids orange juice like you never saw in your life. They began to have an orange cast to their skin. I thought they had a liver problem. So I took him to the doctor, and she said, "What are you feeding these kids?" I said, "Well, lots of orange juice." She said, "Stop it if you want them to stop being orange." Now, if you think that skin color isn't anything other than the body's natural reaction to the natural environment, get over it.
So,
Wow. Family, I learned something new just right there. That skin color is just the reaction of the body to its natural environment. Before there are even whites and blacks, there are only black people in the face of the earth, you know? And I'm super proud that the first remains of human beings were found in my country, Kenya. And as um, she explains, as Jane Elliott explains, she says that with time, as people are moving further away from the equator and considering the type of food they were eating at that time, just made them change the color of their skin. And that does not mean that this change in the color of skin makes you superior in any way. It doesn't. You are the same. You're made in the image and likeness of God. There is nothing special with your skin complexion being lighter. There's nothing special with mine being darker, you know. The only thing that matters is that we are all human beings. And this myth of color, this myth of race is something that should be put an end to, because you can learn from Jane Elliott right there that once you're subjected to discrimination, you feel offended. She also mentioned that when she tried the test, the experiment to adults, the older generation, some of them even wanted to kill her. She had to flee at some point for her safety. You know, people are angered if they are discriminated, especially white folks, because she explained that in the experiment she does it that at one point she gives you the privilege, then the next time she does not give you the same privilege, and now you feel discriminated. And she says that most people find it offensive once they are discriminated. Imagine black folks have been discriminated since the early 1680s, you know, when the first group of black people entered the US of A. You can imagine the struggle the black folks have going through. Right now, they are going through systematic racism. They've been going through a lot. And I just learned today that the issue of color, the issue of the skin just came because of the changes with climate, because of the change with the food people are eating at that given point in time. That shows you that there is nothing special with our complexion. Believe you me, if we were to be subjected to certain temperatures, even right now, probably my skin color could change to something else. That just shows you that there is nothing special with color. Let's continue listening in.
so if all white people are racist, according to you, can they be reprogrammed?
Of course they can. Of course they can. Of
How?
course they can be. It's called education. I'm an educator. The word educator comes from the root duck deuce, which means lead, the prefix e, which means out, the suffix ate, which means the act of, and the suffix or, which means one who does. An educator is one who is engaged in the act of leading people out of ignorance. Now, I know you can change them. The second year I did the blue-eyed, brown-eyed exercise in my classroom, it was filmed by the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation. They gave me a copy of that film. I showed it to my father. My father was about 59 years old at the time. He's been a farmer all his life. He raised six kids, lost one, raised six. Watch that film as a 59-year-old man. When it was over, he stood up, and with tears in his eyes, he took his red handkerchief out of the back pocket of his overalls, his bib overalls, and said, "I wish somebody had taught me that when I was 9 years old." Nobody had dare say to me, this doesn't work, this is too harsh, this isn't necessary, you can't teach an old dog new tricks because they're wrong. You can teach an old dog new tricks. You can teach people to give up the myth of racism. Somebody taught the Greeks to give up the myth that the sun was a god in a golden chariot that went across the sky every morning. They believed that for hundreds of years. We have believed the myth of 3 or 4 races, different races in this country, for long enough. 572 years or something like that is enough of that. It was a lie to begin with, and it's a lie to...
Trainer and human rights activist Jane Elliott. Now, we often hear about reverse racism now.
There's no such thing as reverse racism. There's no such thing as reverse racism. You can only be a racist if you have the power to institutionalize what you're doing to people who are different from you. What we're calling reverse racism is natural reaction to being treated unfairly on the basis of somebody else's ignorance. Now, don't ever let anybody say to you or about anyone around you that people don't like that person because of the color of their skin. That isn't the reason white people don't like people of color. They don't like people of color because they don't understand about skin color. And they don't understand that we all are descendants of somebody who looked like your mother.
That's deep.
You don't really want to get me started on this because
I do want to get you started.
I'm really angry about how we are miseducating the American mind.
Family, I just want to stop it there and just want to make one thing clear, that most of the people do not know the issues with color. Most of the people really want to be educated. She says that her dad came to notice, came to learn about this issue of color. Well, he was educated when he was in his 50s. I wish he learned this earlier. I wish he learned that there is nothing like color. I wish he knew earlier. There is just power with education. There is power with learning. And I cannot write off that most of these white people who have these white supremacy mindsets that have not learned, some of them are difficult, but I tend to believe that there is power with learning. There is power with this experiment. Once you're poked, then you'll feel it, and you will know that there is nothing like that. You will know that there is much more to life than just color.
And what I like the most about what you're doing in your exercises is that you come in with a very direct attitude. You even call yourself the B word.
Well, but you see, the B word for me is the one that's most often used to refer to me. It used to bother me a lot. For me, the B word is an acronym for being in total control, honey. So you want to call me that? It'll prove to me that you're out of control. And then I'll whip out my little Lorena Bobbitt fruit knife and take care of it for you. Go on.
So is it necessary to strip away all of a white person's power, like in your exercises, in order for them to see the light? Or is there another way
It's necessary to do what we do in offices and in the military and in schools and colleges and in hospitals and in community groups all the time. What we do is we become our parent ego. We go into our parent ego state, and that forces all those we're working with into their child ego state. And if you watch our present so-called president, he spends most of his time either in his child or his parent ego state. He never gets into his adult ego state unless he's reading off the teleprompter. And he is such a poor reader that oftentimes he makes mistakes, and then he is instantly in his child ego state right in front of your very eyes. It's absolutely fascinating to watch it happen.
Speaking of our president, a lot of people say that racism has risen under him.
Anybody who doesn't say that hasn't been paying attention. It absolutely has. I'm getting more hate mail now than I have gotten for years. The kinds of things that are being said in this country today are things that he has said for the last 2 years. He has said them publicly, and he got elected because he said them publicly. We have a group of people in the United States of America who were in response to 8 years of a black man in the White House and the possibility that they might have from 4 to 8 years of a woman in the White House, will elect anything that walks and can chew gum at the same time. This last election, as far as I'm concerned, was a direct response to having a black man in the White House for 8 years. And it's time to change the White House to the President's house. This is ridiculous to call the place where the President of the United States lives the White House. It sends the wrong message. It says, I remember when Richard Nixon said to a group of reporters, "I'm trying to save the White House for you white people." That says it all. And at that moment I thought, well, wait a minute. Now this is something that has to be changed, and it has to be changed. Nothing can stop an idea whose time has come. It's time to change the name of the White House to the President's house or the President's residence, which has a nice ring to it, don't you think?
Okay, let's just say that Donald Trump, President Trump, is trying to bring the country together like he said he would do. Wait a second, he's trying to bring the country together. How would he go about doing that?
Resign. If he really wants to bring the country together, all he has to do is resign and take his, with him? The second in command, the vice president. That would bring the country together. But right now, the only way he can bring the country together is put somebody else in the president's office. He does not know how to be a president. He does not know what legislation is about. He does not know how to do this job. He didn't intend to get this job. And had it not been for the Electoral College, he wouldn't have this job. Mrs. Clinton won the popular vote. The only reason we have this person as the President of the United States right now is because the members of the Electoral College didn't do what that Electoral College was designed to do. Thomas Jefferson designed that to make sure that no one who was unfit for that office would ever be elected President of the United States. The Electoral College last year absolutely defeated that.
With the state of the country being what it is right now, there's a lot of conversations taking place about, let's have a conversation about race. How would a person go about having that conversation? What can they expect to happen in a conversation
Well,
like
the
that?
first thing they have to do is not talk about tolerance. I found out the day I was on the bottom in the blue-eyed, brown-eyed exercise with my students. I found out how it feels to be tolerated. I found out that tolerance means put up with or allow me to be. I don't need your allowance, and I don't need to be tolerated. I want to be valued, recognized, and appreciated. Put your tolerance where the sun doesn't shine. I do not believe in tolerance because in this country, we tolerate zits when we're little, zits when we're teenagers, hot flashes when we're old, and the flu and bad weather in between. We tolerate ugly things that are going to go away. I don't intend to tolerate anyone. I intend to recognize, appreciate, and value people, not to tolerate them. And I have all kinds of respect for the man who is part of the tolerance group in Atlanta, maybe. I have all kinds of respect for those folks, but we've got to change it from tolerance because the powerful can tolerate. The powerless have to wait to be tolerated. I have no time for that.
I like that.
No, I'm going to get lots of angry responses to that one. And I understand that. But I'm reading a book right now. Everybody needs to read this book. It's called, everybody has to read this. Everybody that's watching this has to read this book on tyranny. 20 things that we've learned over the last 100 years in this country that have put us in the position we're in now and what we can do about it. Everybody has to read this book. They should read this book first, and then they should read The Myth of Race by Robert Wald Sussman. And once you've read The Myth of Race, you will never, ever again go along with the idea that there are 3 or 4 or 5 different races. It was a lie made up by the people who ran the Spanish Inquisition. And before that, there were different colors, but race had nothing to do. There was only one race, the human race. We made that whole thing up. It's time to get rid of it. We have the power to do that.
Wow, wow, wow. There is only one race in the face of the earth, the human race only. There's only one race. And I just want to put some emphasis on this other issue that Jane Elliott has spoken about, the coloring of the White House. Why is White House known as White House? There can be a more creative name for that house. It could be the presidential palace. It could be the president official residence, just something, but no white, considering white supremacy is a thing in the US, and at some point, some people may misquote the name and just bring some weirdness into it. So, guys, Jane Elliott has spoken about a lot of issues, and I just want to end this video right here. I hope you all have learned something from her. She has a lot of information when it comes to race, when it comes to education, and when it comes to racism as a thing, and discrimination. She really has good lectures in those fields. You can go check out other videos of Jane Elliott, and you'll surely change your mind. If you're that person who believes in the myth, from today I'll be calling it the myth of racism. If you're somebody who believes on the myth of racism, these will change your mind. Once you keep on hearing her lectures, one after the other, you'll slowly change your mind, and you'll start respecting your fellow brothers and sisters, your neighbors, your black cousin. You'll start respecting people. And I'm glad that I just came across this video, and I'm happy that probably it will bring an impact to somebody's life. So guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Kindly do consider subscribing to my channel, and I'd also request for you guys to comment down below so that we may be able to learn. We may create a conversation right there in regards to this same issue. And lastly, I'd ask you all to also recommend your family and friends to subscribe to my channel so that we may grow together. And you can also support me through super thanks down below on the right side of your screen, and I'll be so grateful, guys. See you all in my next video. Goodbye for now. Peace.